thank you for joining us for our third monthly town hall. Before we get started and jump into the questions with Leemon and Mance, I just wanted to share, we always try to address as many questions as we can. We get a ton of these each time. We go through a few criteria in order to try to answer them and make sure that these town halls are as useful for the broader community as possible. So some of those criteria include, how often are we getting the same kind of question? Is it apparent that it's a pretty broad, concern or question or area of curiosity among the community? The second is, do we have meaningful information to give? So we don't really engage in speculation or what if, or, things that we don't have, some real good solid answers for you. We always want to give some good, meaningful answers. The third is we also try to not overlap with questions that can be found in either the Hedera FAQ or the Hedera website. So we do get a number of questions if you browse through the website in terms of talking about things like governance or things like how is Hedera different from a blockchain. Some of those questions, this community has been with us a long time. We know we have some new users and we're excited to welcome them, but we also want to be mindful of the folks who have been with us a while and are already aware of the answers to those. So please definitely keep the questions coming. For those of you who are new, welcome. We have a ton of video content. Leemon and Mance and the rest of the team have put up some really educational videos on our YouTube channel. So I would also encourage you to go there if some of those questions are not being answered here. But please do keep the questions coming. We plan to continue to have these and host them, and we love hearing from the community. So with that, I will kick it off with one that we continue to get, and I know people always love sort of the behind the scenes views. Leemon, what are some of Hedera's engineers working on at the moment?
Yes. So they're working on lots of different things at once. Of course, they're working on things in the platform, so we'll have things like state proofs that they're working on. We also have things that are demos and apps that we're showing how to use, like on the HCS, different ways, libraries and things and demos on the HCS itself. And what's interesting is interconnectivity between platforms. So we're working on our plugins that we have for Hyperledger and for R3 Corda and for Quorum, so that you can use these private ledgers and just flip a switch and turn them into an appnet with Hedera. So you get the trust of Hedera. But then we're also working on ways of doing communication between networks. And so between Hedera and other ledgers. And so this is all interesting stuff. We have our engineers working on lots of different things at once, and we will be announcing various things as they get done. And it's exciting to watch it all moving along.
Great, thanks, Leemon. The next one, Mance, is for you. What are the steps being taken by Hedera to mitigate and eliminate such hurdles for adoption so as to make HCS a de facto enterprise choice over private conventional ordering mechanisms?
Right. So let me just say that I'm interpreting that to mean over conventional or old school, I'll call them old school ordering mechanisms like RAFT, consensus mechanisms, RAFT and PBFT and others. So to answer that question, we need to first really identify the most significant hurdles to adoption for DLT projects today. And of course, we've done that. And what we found is that there's a lot of effort on the part of those projects to create the consortia that they need for distributed trust. The first year or two for many of these projects is spent not only in developing software, but pulling together a group of participants in order to create the distributed trust. This requires that the members of the consortium create business frameworks, legal frameworks, operational processes that govern the distributed network. And that activity detracts from the more important work of creating the application and deploying the use case. There is a lot of time wasted on the creating and managing of the distributed trust. So that's the problem we decided to solve. That's the biggest problem to realizing value in these organizations. So that's what we decided to solve. HCS eliminates this source of friction or hurdle to adoption, if you will, by literally offering distributed trust as a service. And I've said it from the beginning, the tech is important, but the council is equally important. The Hedera network, operated and governed by our world-class council, is the product. And so that's the biggest hurdle. And that's what we've uniquely identified and created to solve that problem in the marketplace. Now, there are other things that we're doing that add value and make it easier to use HCS as a service and to address certain categories of use cases. And all those are going to be important. We'll be rolling those out in the coming weeks and months. But the biggest hurdle to adoption is the one that we've already solved. And that's what we're doing with HCS.
Thanks, Mance. All right, speaking of the council, Leemon, can you address the roles and responsibilities of the technical steering committee?
Yeah. So what we have is a council, and then they're in charge, and then under them are some committees that they have established. So the council is the 15 companies we've announced so far, plus more coming. There'll be 39. The latest one was Zain, which we're very excited about. With the Middle Eastern presence now, we're trying to be as diversified as possible. They're in control. They do everything. Then there's, of course, a board of directors that they appoint or that they elect people to, and there's these committees that they appoint, and they can delegate various ways, but they're in control. Now, of the committees, one very important committee, I don't know if you can rank them, but one very important committee is the Technical Steering and Product Committee. And this is the committee that is responsible for determining the roadmap of how the product will change over time, what features will be added, on what schedule they'll be added. It talks about policies for how we run our nodes. How powerful does a node need to be? And how secure does a node need to be? And what are the best practices to make sure that our nodes are secure? We talk about those things. We talk about how does the council actually digitally sign transactions to make things happen? And so the committee works on those sorts of things. Everything that is involved in the technology and the roadmap and what the product is, that's what the Technical Steering and Product Committee does. And it has a lot of different council members are involved in it. And I've been very happy to see just how many people are involved, really getting involved, sharing their expertise on things like security and on software engineering and on what the use cases are out there, all of that stuff. So it's an exciting committee to be involved with, and it's one of the very important committees that we have. And all those committees then lie underneath the council, which is kind of on top and in charge of them.
All right. And Mance, we have another question on one of the other committees here. So how is Hedera currently using its treasury funds to incentivize development on the network? And what progress has been made within the Network Utilization and Growth Committees?
Yeah. So I think it's interesting to take a step back and look at the differences at a macro level between our industry and other tech industries that have emerged over time. So if we look at AI, for example, or IoT, or cloud, right? You pick your sector, pick your technology sector. In those cases, after 10 years of being in the market, seeing inception and growth in the market, and multiple rounds of VC investment, there are always success stories. There are always acquisitions of companies for $100 million or more, and not just one or two, but a reasonable number of real success stories. After more than 12 years since Bitcoin has been introduced, it's difficult to point to those same types of success stories in our industry. There just aren't many. There are protocol platforms that have really high market caps, but not a lot of real usage by applications that are driving real value. What we believe is that's because people are looking in the wrong places to find that value. So we've been making strategic investments in use cases associated with our council members and other large enterprises that will drive true value creation and high TPS on the network. And we're betting that even just one meaningful enterprise deployment could drive more value creation than what's currently found in crypto today. So that's the history here, not just of our industry, but observing the cycles in the tech sector over decades and looking at the differences between what we've observed and where we are today in our category has absolutely influenced the focus area for us in terms of the way that we use treasury and think about how to use the treasury to drive usage of the platform.
All right. Thanks, Mance. Leemon, a timely one here for you. Based on the podcast released Tuesday, it came to light that the Coupon Bureau alone could be processing more than the 10,000 TPS throttle of the network in place currently. Now, this was not a guarantee. This was a speculation. Leemon mentioned we have quite some time before getting anywhere near this threshold, but we are now seeing it could be outpaced very rapidly and perhaps almost overnight. What measures are in place to scale quickly if need be?
Oh, well, I would love that to happen overnight, but I don't think that's going to happen. It'll happen slowly. I do think we're going to see enormous volume of transactions, and Coupon Bureau itself is going to have a lot, and other people we're talking to will have a lot. That will come gradually over time. We're not going to have 10,000 overnight. It'll come gradually. Sure, we can raise that throttle when we need to. Right now, we're nowhere close to it, so we'll leave it at 10,000. We can raise it later. Raising the speed of mainnet is easy. We do want to make sure that all of the mirror nodes can keep up. And so we now have an ecosystem of people writing mirror nodes. We want to make sure that they all get notice and that they improve their software to be able to handle high speeds before we go to high speeds. But that'll happen. It's not impossible to make your mirror node fast. You just have to test it on fast things and architect it so it can be fast. And so we'll see those keeping up. I don't see any concerns that usage is going to grow faster than the mirror nodes can keep up with or that the mainnet can keep up with. I think that they'll raise their speeds at the same time. Now, when we get to truly high volumes, 1 million transactions a second, no single shard ledger could ever do that. We're going to need to have sharding, and that's easy to add too. And so we'll add that too. And the real constraint on sharding is that you don't do it before it makes economic sense. So when you're doing 13 transactions a second, mirror nodes can keep up, mainnet nodes can keep up. Why go to the expense of having more shards? But as the traffic justifies it, well, absolutely go to more shards. And then you have separate mirror nodes for each shard, so they keep up too. Everything scales great. So sharding's easy to add, but again, we don't need it today. And we will easily add it when we need it. And I am excited about people like Coupon Bureau that I think are going to have a good number of transactions. And we should be clear, it's not going to be 10,000 overnight. It also is going to have a ramp up. There'll be a graph, a curve that it ramps up. But ultimately, I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of transactions per second. And I love seeing us on the path to that end state.
Great, thanks, Leemon. All right, Mance, the next one is on the financial and HBAR side. Hedera recently used a financial firm to sell HBARs on the open market for tax purposes. It looked like the financial firm sold around 25 million HBARs on Binance during the LG announcement. Is this true, and can we expect this to happen with future council member announcements?
Yeah, so while I understand it might have looked that way, it's not the case. It's not the case at all. So let me just set the context for those that don't understand the larger picture here. We do incentivize not incentivize, we comp our employees in part with tokens. And when we release those tokens to the employees, we withhold a portion of those that we then turn around and sell slowly over time to pay the taxes associated with that comp plan. We go ahead immediately and pay the taxes. There are rules about how timely you have to pay the IRS for when releasing those coins to the employees. We pay the taxes immediately out of our cash account. We have coins then that we sell very slowly into the market over a period of time and replace that cash balance from those token sales. And we do sell through, we sell to a third party for those tokens. While it might look like that 25 million was sold in connection with the LG announcement, that's actually not the case. The LG coins were sold. It's not the LG coins. The coins that were moved to that account that was observed by the community that have nothing to do with LG were sold over a period of weeks. In fact, the final set of those coins just got sold on Monday of this week. We have internal guidelines that limit how much HBAR we sell on any given day, and it's a function of the daily transaction volume. So, so the most that we've sold since moving those coins over to that account, the most that we've sold in a single day is just over $100,000. So while, you know, perception here doesn't mirror reality at all, we did want to just sort of address this and clear that up so that there's no confusion in the community there about what's going on.
All right.
Oh, and by the way, we will be posting an FAQ with more detail about this process and how it works in the next week or two.
Okay, thanks, Mance. Okay, I'm gonna, there's a few here in rapid fire order for you, Mance, on the council. Mance, I don't remember this, but it says, in a previous town hall, you mentioned the council hopefully will be full by early 2021. Being that there are still 25 seats to fill, do you still see this as feasible?
So I don't remember saying that either. If I did, my apologies. I didn't intend to say that. I have said or speculated that I expect we will get there by the end of 2021. But getting to 39 in the next 6 months, no, it's not possible. I never intended to imply that. If I did in the past, my apologies. But yeah, so by the end of 2021, perhaps, you know, I think that's a good goal to have. Yeah.
All right. And then are council members required to pay any sort of fee to join the council?
Practically no. There is a nominal $100 fee, just sort of to memorialize the agreement in some ways, but the council members don't really pay anything to join the council. They do have to run a node in the network. There are some costs associated with running a node, but you know, unlike other platforms, they don't write a big check to join the network.
Okay. And then outside of the agents of SHIELD, are government organizations like the FDA or NASA eligible for council membership?
No. To say it very simply, we don't invite or work with government organizations to participate on the council, but I did want to take this opportunity to show you our criteria. So I'm going to share my screen briefly and just talk through this. Here we go. So here is the membership criteria for council participation. You could say these are our objectives. We want at least one member from each GICS sector. That's the Global Industry Classification Standard. You can go Google it and get a sense for what that is and how that works. We want at least one member from the university sector. Of course, we have that. We want at least one member from an NGO sector, the NGO sector. We don't have that yet, so that's still to be done. The requirements are that the universities have to be in the top 10 globally. Corporations have to be in the Fortune 500 for their region. So you may see some corporations on the council that have smaller overall market caps compared to perhaps others, but we also want representation on a global basis. And some regions don't have as large corporations in terms of market cap than others. And so that's how we measure that. They have to be in the Fortune 500 for their region. And then we want at least 3 members from each of the different geographies: North America, South America, EMEA, and Asia Pac. So there you go. That's the membership criteria, and I hope that's helpful.
All right. Thanks, Mance. And I think, Christian, our CMO, has a question in here about Africa as well. We are not forgetting any of our continents here.
Correct. My apologies if it's not in that list. Africa is absolutely there.
All right, Leemon, another question on the technology side. Besides the obvious advantages, what are the issues that could prevent appnets from choosing HCS over a mechanism like RAFT, for example?
Well, so you get what you pay for. If you don't care about ABFT, so it's okay if a DDoS attack on one computer can shut down your whole network. If you don't care about fairness, so one computer can arbitrarily influence the ordering and even maybe not allow you to get things through the network, then you might use some other systems. But if you're willing to pay a small fee, then you can have ABFT, you can have the DDoS resilience, you can have the fairness, you can have the speed and the reliability, you can inherit the trust of our network. You don't have to go find your own computers that are trustworthy. You can have our council members and our computers being trustworthy. So this is why you would use this over something else. So, like I said, you get what you pay for. If you want the trust and you want the fairness and you want the ABFT and the DDoS resilience, then you would use this. And it isn't very much that you pay. So we're talking about something like 1/100 of a penny per message going through HCS. So 1/100 of a penny per message is actually kind of cheap. And there's ways of using it that really don't cost very much. But that's why you would use Hedera over something like RAFT or something else, as if you cared about ABFT, DDoS, fairness, trust, the trust of the network itself, those sorts of things.
All right. Thanks, Leemon. Mance, does Swirlds have any plans to launch a DAPP?
No, not anytime soon. So Swirlds has been for a couple of years now and will continue to be focused on just making sure that Hedera is successful. Of course, Swirlds is, and what I mean by that is Swirlds is entirely focused on developing the platform that the services sit on top of. So there is the Hashgraph platform that manages the Hashgraph algorithm and the communications across the nodes. And then built on top of the platform are all the services that Hedera offers. And Swirlds is entirely focused on this activity.
All right, thank you for clarifying that, Mance. Leemon, a couple questions on council members and HBARs. At what point will council members take ownership of their equal portion of HBARs in treasury to be staked on their nodes? And will there be a multi-sig feature to ensure that HBARs that outgoing council members possess in private accounts are passed on to incoming members?
Wow, no, that's not how it works. I would be very scared if that were the way it works. That would be a problem. So that's not how it works. Here's how it works. The coins that are owned by Hedera, the gigantic treasury pot of coins, are not given to the members. They're not staked by the members. They're proxy staked to the members. That's a big difference. So they are owned by Hedera. They are under the control of Hedera. They have a multi-sig account that requires most of the Hedera members to agree whenever they move around. One particular member running one particular node has, a 39th of all the coins proxy staked to them. That's what we'll be when we have 39 members when we're doing proxy staking. 1/39th of all the coins will be proxy staked to them, but that doesn't give them control of those coins. They can't move those coins. They can't take them. They can't give them to someone else. They can't spend them. All they do is they run a node, and those 39 are, that 39th of all the coins that we have are lending their weight to their voting in how they are running the node in the consensus algorithm. It gives them weight in the consensus algorithm. That's it. But that 1/39th will be in an account that has the keys of all the council members on it. And it takes some fraction, more than half or more than 2/3, I forgot what it was. It takes some fraction of all the council members to agree for coins to move in and out of that. And so when one council member leaves and another one comes in, we just have the whole council sign off on a transaction that says, well, stop proxy staking to that computer that isn't even running anymore. Now I want you to stop proxy stake to this new computer that's running in its place. And that's all. So no, the council no council member controls a huge fraction of our coins. It's the council as a whole that is controlling the coins. And that's important for all the problems that were suggested by the question. Those problems would arise if you just gave it to a council member and said, please give them back, and had to rely on their goodwill to give them back. We don't do that.
All right, thank you for clarifying that, Leemon. Related, staying on the topic of coins, Mance, do you think there will ever be a time in the future where you need to burn coins to raise the market cap and or increase security?
No, simply stated, no. So I don't think that we will ever burn coins. I don't think that we will ever mint new coins. We are committed to a stable coin supply. And I just, the probability of either of those things happening is almost zero.
All right. And then we'll keep going on the HBAR questions. This one comes from an HBAR holder in Korea who is trading on UPbit. He came across Hedera at first when they delivered an official announcement that Google had joined the Hedera Governing Council. That was shared on UPbit, and later UPbit shared that UCL had joined the council as well, but there was no announcement from UPbit related to LG. A number of Korean investors rely on their exchange's announcements and thus still do not know the fact that LG joined the council. Can you address delivering the latest news, LG and other council members to UPbit?
Yeah, so honestly, I don't know why UPbit didn't send out a notification about LG. We did send that information to the exchanges that list HBAR, including UPbit. I can speculate that UPbit perhaps just thought that the press with the LG announcement was enormous. There was saturation in the Korean market and various markets around the world. LG sent that notice to its contacts globally. And so there was just an awful lot of press, and perhaps UPbit thought that given the amount of press that came out of that announcement, there was no need, but I don't know. We do send the notices and we will continue to do so.
All right. So I am excited. This is the third town hall and the first question for me. Has there been any talk on potentially producing a global Hedera event or convention for the community at large to come together? So, given the global pandemic, we do not have any plans to bring our virtual and global community together. We started off as a distributed company. We know that we have folks all around the world. As much as we would love to see people in person, everybody's safety and health is our first priority. We have been conducting a global virtual hackathon, which was similar to the Hedera 18 event that we did previously, but virtual, so anyone can join and you don't have to get on a plane or go anywhere. The closing ceremonies and the winners of that hackathon, we are excited. We're going to actually announce them live next Thursday in a live stream, and that will be at 9 a.m. Pacific next Thursday. So please definitely tune in if you can, and we're very excited about the projects that have been presenting on there and about the winners. Once we are past the hackathon, we will be resuming a webinar series as well. And so, we want to find different ways that we can communicate with the community and that we can continue to engage people in a safe and efficient manner given what's going on in the world. So please, when we do the next round of these, we will, be soliciting another call for questions, but also if you have ideas on how we can further engage the community in a safe and healthy manner, we would love to hear some of those too.
And on the hackathon, I was amazed at the huge number of participants we had and the really high quality of what they made. I just was blown away by the quality of the apps and DAPPs and applications and things that people built. And I cannot wait to announce the winners. Yeah, it's very, very, very good work by very many people. Coming soon.
All right. And then Mance, the next question is similarly around, are you planning to increase community outreach programs such as the ambassador program?
Not in the short term, and that is influenced by COVID. So today what we're doing is focusing on the MVPs, and we are enabling them to educate the developer community at large. Our plans may change when life sort of returns to normal in some sense, but at the moment we're focusing our efforts on those MVPs that enable them to go and evangelize and provide education to the community on our behalf.
All right. Thanks, Mance. And, I know we don't typically comment on any and every rumor that's out there. Otherwise, we would spend all our day doing that. But one that we have seen pop up in the community is, how accurate are the rumors circulating about layoffs at Hedera? A significant figure has made it sound like it's a significant portion of the staff being let go.
Yeah. So I have no idea where this rumor came from. I do know that people like to spread FUD from time to time. There's absolutely no truth to the rumor. We're not laying anybody off. In fact, it's just the opposite. We are hiring people. And so let's just put that one to rest. Again, no idea where it came from. Total fabrication.
All right. Thanks, Mance. Leemon, from your point of view, what is the biggest hurdle Hedera will need to overcome in order to make it to a 100-year company?
Yes, we are building something that we want to be here 100 years from now. We are building something that will be a utility to the entire planet for the next century and beyond. That's the goal. And originally, I assumed that the biggest challenge, the biggest hurdle, or the biggest thing we had to overcome was putting together a council of world-class companies and organizations. I thought that was an enormous mountain to climb. And guess what? That's turning out to actually been working really well. We've been able to get very high quality and very high diversity. And it just is continuing. I am just amazed at the council members we have. And so that was my biggest, what I thought was the biggest challenge when we started. And that is not at all a concern now. Even if we never added another company, I think we would have a really good council. And we have a pipeline of more that are coming. So I'm not even worried about that anymore. Right now, what I see is that the world as a whole is in the middle of a transition to distributed ledger technology, DLTs, actually being used in the real world. Mance talked about how we don't have the huge use cases that you see in other industries. Well, that's because we're embryonic. I mean, we really are. Yeah, we've been around for a while, but we're still embryonic as an industry. The whole world of ledgers, DLT, is at the beginning stages. I do think, and I think it's pretty clear at this point, the whole world is going to transition to using DLTs for a lot of different things in a lot of different industries in every part of life. As the world transitions to using them everywhere, what we need to do is make sure that we are positioned to be providing what people need so that we become part of that revolution that we are just at the beginning of. And so, you could say, what was the biggest challenges when horses started to be replaced by cars? Well, one thing was, well, could you really build a car that would run reliably and run for long distances? And that was the biggest challenge. But once that was taken care of, then really it was all about, can you build a company that can provide people what they need so that you can become a big part of that landscape? And I'd say we're the same way. I'm no longer worried about building a car that runs well and runs for long distances. We have the council. and it's growing fast. Right now, all I'm doing is concentrating on building what it is the world needs to actually be able to transition to something that is fast and fair and secure and trustworthy. It's all about trust in our industry. That's where I think we're headed.
All right. Thank you, Leemon. Mance, I love this next question because I know the story behind it. How did Zain come to be a governing council member? How were they contacted and convinced?
Yes. Well, I think it was last town hall where we said, or maybe it was the one before that, where we said that the community does really contribute and help. And we put out a call to the community to help us even further. This is one of those examples where gentleman Richard McNamara, hi Rich, here's a shout out. He's an employee at Zain. He's been a longtime supporter and ambassador to Hedera, and hi Rich. and he's the one that made the introduction. He was the champion within the company, and he helped to make it happen. If there are others out there in similar positions, of course, we welcome those introductions.
All right. Thank you, Mance, and thank you, Richard. Okay, Leemon, this is not Hedera related, but what unsolved problem in science do you think is the most exciting?
Oh, they're all exciting. If it's science and it's unsolved, then really it's inherently exciting. So, you know, you have a unified theories in physics and particle physics and interesting things there, and unifying quantum mechanics with general relativity. You have interesting questions in chemistry. Can we do high temperature superconductors? In biology, brother, we barely scratched the surface of biology, trying to understand how genes and cells and other things work. One big question, why do we get old? We don't even understand. Gerontology is not well understood. There's telomere shortening, and there's free radical damage, and there's other things, but we're not even sure we even understand the full list of what the things are and how they work. If we actually understood it, that would be a fascinating scientific abstract question on its own, and might lead to technologies where you don't get old. You kind of stay young for your whole life, and maybe your life is even longer. But you definitely will be healthier in your old age. I do think that we will get to the point where we can be far more healthy in our old age than we are now. So those are the science questions. I think they're all exciting. I really would rather talk about a technology question. What's the biggest technology problem that is underlooked at right now? And I would say that is molecular nanotechnology. Can we build machines at the atomic scale that build other things, including copies of themselves, at the atomic scale? Can you have like a 3D printer that builds other 3D printers where every atom is where you want it to be, or a factory that does the same? If you can do so, it totally changes every aspect of the world. It's hard to even imagine how much it changes. And we're making real progress, but I think it's slower than it should be. And I'll tell you, if I had to bring it down even narrower to a single problem within that field, I would say it's the problem of an in silico replicator. Could you build a self-replicating machine model just simulated in a computer? Just say where all the atoms are and then simulate it and have it work. I would say that is the single biggest problem that ought to be worked on right now in molecular nanotechnology. And molecular nanotechnology would be the single most exciting technology question that is not being addressed. Now, things like better batteries and fusion power and everything else are being addressed, and they're extremely exciting. But I would say that's the most exciting science and technological question that is not being addressed as much as it should be, despite the fact that there is a lot of research going on it. That'd be my answer.
All right. Leemon, sounds like we will never run out of challenges to solve.
No, that's the best part. Here's what we know. The more you know, the bigger the border is. So the more you know, the more questions you have. So science gets more exciting as science answers more questions. And the same is true of technology. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. We're going to keep going on this theme. So we have another question. Do you believe AI will take over the world and become a menace to humanity? And could DLT play a role in this, either in preventing it or facilitating it?
Okay. Well, I, for one, welcome our new cyber overlords. Okay. So I love the Terminator movies. They're lots of fun. That doesn't keep me up awake at night. And I know that there are a number of smart people that it does worry them, but I'm not worried about it. I think that AI has made enormous progress in some areas and hasn't even started in others. And we can talk more about that if people ever have questions about it. But there are areas where AI is vastly better than you could ever have imagined it would ever be. And other areas where it really doesn't even have the first start, and we don't know how to get started yet. And we really don't even have an clue about how to start. So I'm not worried about an AI machine getting smart, raising an army, and destroying mankind. This is, humanity is safe from the rise of the machines, I think, right now. Also, people who are worried about super smart machines, even if we could get over those barriers, often forget about the fact that we'll have augmented humans. Humans will have AIs helping us as well as the AIs against us. So even so, I'm not worried about that. What I do worry about is that it takes our focus away from the real problem. And this is the real problem. AI is going to bring about an industrial revolution that is bigger than the original industrial revolution, but occurring on a much more compressed time scale. Which means, all our jobs are going to go away and be replaced with new kinds of jobs. No, that's great. 100 years from now, we're all going to be really happy that this revolution happened. That's not the question. The question is, in the revolution itself, lots of people will lose jobs. New jobs will be created, but will they be created in time? And will the people who lost an old job be able to transition to a new job? This is an enormous problem. And so, although it's fun to watch Terminator movies, this isn't where our real concern should be right now. Our real concern should be, can we navigate the rapids of this transition to a world where AI is doing a lot of the things we're doing now? And a lot of those things are drudgery. They have the potential to make the standard of living much, much higher for every human on the planet. But there's also an enormous potential for great agony in the meantime. And we've got to make sure that we transition wisely. So yes, AI is a huge threat to short-term happiness. But yeah, I'm not really so worried about armed robots in the streets hunting us down.
Okay, related to that though, another interesting aspect of AI, Leemon, do you have any thoughts on how AI can be programmed to remove bias?
Oh, it's an interesting problem. So there's really two parts to this. One part is that AI, at least our current AI, most of our systems require enormous amounts of data to come to conclusions. So if you go out and collect all that data and there's bias in your data, you only collected it from some kinds of people and not other kinds of people. You only collected it in some situations and not in other situations. Then your system will absolutely have overwhelming biases that are bad, and it will make bad decisions. And if you're giving it the power to make decisions that affect people, then you will hurt people. This is the first problem. It's a problem in getting AI to work at all, and then it's a problem in, will AI have biases that actually hurt people? So that's the first problem, is getting data. It's a very hard problem. There's a huge amount of research in doing more with less data, which we've got to keep doing more of. Basically, you use a lot of data to generalize and learn general things, and then little tiny data sets can make you really smart on little tiny areas because you're kind of leveraging all that other data. Stuff like that. There is a second question as well. What if you have perfect data and you see a correlation that truly is there? To what degree do you want to harm people based on a correlation? Maybe some aspects of me correlate with terrible people. Does that justify treating me like I'm a terrible person? Minority Report said this. Well, what if there's evidence you're someday going to commit a crime, but you haven't committed it yet? Should you be punished for what you haven't done? What if I correlate with someone? I know someone whose first and last name happen to be the same as a known terrorist. He says every time he goes to an airport, he gets stopped and he has to go through extra checks and things. It's a true correlation. He really is correlated with that terrorist in his name. But does that justify making his life worse every single time he goes to an airport through his whole life? And that's a bigger question than just AI, but AI amplifies it. AI is a tool that amplifies what we can do, so it amplifies the problems that we are struggling with. So that's a long answer to an even bigger question, I think.
All right, thanks, Leemon. As we get towards the top of the hour, we always try to save some time for a few fun questions. So this one, I heard that Jack Dorsey, Leemon, I heard that Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, eats 1 meal per day. how many meals does Leemon eat on the daily?
I'll have to say, I've never been asked that before. I eat a normal schedule. Yeah, okay. So I eat a normal schedule. I try to eat healthy. I try to eat low carb, not super low carb and not keto, just kind of low carb. I try to eat a reasonable number of calories, not super calorie constriction, but just sort of a reasonable number of calories. I try to walk at least 10,000 steps a day. Some days it's 20,000. And almost all of that is in my endless phone calls and meetings all day. I walk in little circles in my living room. Used to work in little circles in my office. Now, because of the virus, it's little circles in my living room. And I walk 10 or 20,000 10 or 20,000 steps a day. So I just try to live kind of a balanced, healthy life, watch my diet, watch my exercise, try to get enough sleep, try to have a regular sleep schedule, and don't do anything that's more extreme. And maybe the more extreme is good. Maybe there's evidence that would be more extreme would be good, but that's what I do.
All right, so until we solve some of science's gerontology problems, that sounds like a
let's solve those. That'd be good. Yes.
Okay, and this one, Mance and Leemon. Mance, I don't know if you want to go first here. What activities are you most looking forward to enjoying safely, I will add, once quarantine is over?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is that with the exception of being in the office with the team, life hasn't changed much. I don't travel. I used to travel a lot. So I'm no longer traveling and I'm not able to be in the office with the team. But outside of those two things, life hasn't changed much. The one thing that I am looking forward to, in addition to being back with the team, is to take my kids to a theme park. It's been a long time. They have been locked up with me and my wife here, of course, and we're looking forward to getting out and just having some fun. So maybe a trip to Disney World or something like that.
All right, fingers crossed. And how about you, Leemon?
I like to go to movies. I like to go to restaurants. I am going to restaurants some, but we've opened up restaurants here in Texas, but also our infection rate is climbing faster every day. We're accelerating. So I would like to be able to just go to movies, which are all closed, and go to restaurants freely and just kind of relax. I'd even like to work in the office rather than from home. Then I could walk in little tiny circles in the office instead of in my house or my apartment. But yeah, I'm looking forward to all that. But I do get out and hike through some trees sometimes. And I'm working from home. It works out okay. So I hope everybody's staying safe. I hope everybody's staying sane and finding ways to be happy and finding ways to live life. So make sure that, we're constrained in what we can do, but that you find a way to live life and enjoy life. And I would encourage everyone to do that. Don't just wait for the day when we're free, but find a way to be free inside in your mind, even when we have these constraints. That's what I would hope everyone can do.
Thank you, Leemon. And while we are indoors, we're going to wrap it up with this one. Mance, what was the last show that you have binge watched? We could all use a good one.
Yeah, well, so it's on Amazon Prime in this case, and it's called John Beecham. It's set in 1795. It's an Englishman, former employee of the East India Trading Company, set in Delhi. And I just find it fascinating to take a look into late 18th century Indian culture. Only one season, so it's like 8 episodes, but that's the last one that we've watched, and it was very enjoyable. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I think we all have some weekend entertainment in front of us, a full season to binge watch. Mance, Leemon, again, thank you for your time, and community, thank you all for joining us today. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to be doing the live stream of the hackathon winners next Thursday. So we certainly hope that you will tune into that and join us and take a look at some of the exciting DAPPs that have participated in that, and that the judges, which include our team as well as some of the council members, think are really exciting and have some great potential. So with that, I will say thank you, and we will see you next month.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, and also happy Juneteenth to everyone. Although it's not happy, but
that's what I was going to say as well. I'm glad that you brought it up. Yeah.
Yeah. So we as a company are taking that day off to remember the struggle that people have been fighting in the past and that are currently struggling. And I hope that everyone would remember racism is a real problem and that we all need to be working to fight against it and to make this world a better place. And so we just wish from us to all of you that you are all staying safe, that you are able to make the world better. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.